No, you're fine. It's 1 o'clock, so I reckon I'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to be recording this anyway. So Dan's got that on already. So without further ado, welcome to session 2 of our lockdown training workshops, but session, I don't even know, 20 something of the overall e-learning sessions. So lovely to have you all. We had really great turnout last week, and that was amazing to see. That was the biggest head count that I've had in a long time. And I'm glad that I wasn't looking at the numbers when I was presenting, because it was, I think, what was it, Dan, 28 or something like that, yep. Which is that's quite good. So what we're going to go through today is similar to what we went through last week. I've got a little demo module I've put together, and I'll just talk to you about how I built it and pause for questions. So before I get started, does anyone have anything they want to go through from last week, or anything that's pressing about what you've got at the moment? Going to take your silence as a no, and we'll sally forth onto the rest of this. So I will share my screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. So because I get to write about whatever I want, I picked toilet paper for today's topic, and I did a little bit of digging around and some research. So I'll show you what I've put together, and then we'll go through how I built it. So this is a really clean title slide with another image. We've got a little bit of information around the types of material that were used before toilet paper existed, which was very fascinating for me. Commercial production, so this is a bit of a timeline example. An embedded video, if you get a moment to watch this, it is hilarious. Quilted Northern is a company that develops toilet paper in the States. I don't know if they exist here or not, but about 4 years ago, they did a really funny commercial talking about their rustic weave line, which is, it's great. We won't watch it because it's about a minute long, but I highly recommend it. It's very entertaining. And we've got an example of an interaction. And then I will show you how to embed something that is not available on YouTube or Vimeo using our in-house embedding option. So this is a quite handy tool that I use every once in a while for random bits and pieces. So that is today's demo module. So I'll whip that back to the beginning and move that off screen, and then we'll go forward and build it. All right. So as reference, put that there. What I'm going to do is recreate this slide. So what I have here is a very clean and very simple example of what I refer to as a font hierarchy. And all of that is a breakdown on different font styles that are meant to determine the difference in importance of specific pieces of text. So this is a really common thing that you'll see in the newspaper or in magazines. And all that I needed to do was highlight the title and put a little tagline below it, and then a little bit of an introduction to what this is actually about. So we'll build that really quickly. So we'll make a new cell, and we have the evolution of for this first one. And my computer feels like cooperating with me. So we'll copy that and put that in here. And all that I've done for this is use the same note font that I have, but change the color to the kind of bluey gray that we use for most of our marketing stuff now. And we've got toilet tissue as the title. So this theme will be the same as the title theme. And then below that we have a tagline. So we'll copy that and paste over here. So for those of you who aren't familiar with keyboard shortcuts, all that I'm doing is you either use Control or Command depending on what device you're using. If you want to copy something, it's Control or Command and then C. If you want to paste it in Bracken specifically, we want to paste it without any of the formatting that may be sitting behind that content. So my suggestion is to always use, again, Control or Command and then Shift V instead of just V, because that combination of the shift will actually just pull through the raw text, and you won't run the risk of having any of the other font styling information sitting in the background for that. So for this one, we'll make that a little bit bigger. And then what I want to do is align all of these to the left and make sure that they're evenly spaced. So I'll click and drag to get a selection box. And then I'll pop up to Layout, Align, and I'll hit left. And then under Space, Distribute Vertically. And what that does is aligns everything to the left-hand side and then distributes them vertically in an even fashion. So now we have a really nice, clean looking layout over here. Now, all that I've done with this image is, again, grabbed it off of Unsplash. This is a site I referred to in the last session. Really great option if you're looking for some really high quality images that are free to use. And again, we have they have a nice request that you reference the original creator of that particular piece. So for example, if I wanted to use this one, when you download an image, it'll give you this little pop-up that says say thanks, and all that you want to do is grab this embed a credit badge, click that link, you'll get a bunch of HTML. So when you click in there, it automatically highlights everything for you. So all you need to do is copy that, and then you can come to your module, create a new cell, go to source code underneath view, and then you paste all of the HTML in there, and then hit save. And it'll create that nice little badge. And this is Unsplash only. I don't know of any other sites that actually do that. But it creates a nice little badge that actually creates a hyperlink that takes the person back to that original image. So it gives credit to the owner of the original image, which is very polite to do when they're offering up their stuff for free so kindly. So all that I've done with that image that I grabbed before, if you look here, you'll see the original. And same as last time, when you've uploaded this originally, it's actually quite big. And I don't really want it to be that big. They don't scale nicely. If you tried to put something that large into one of these slides, you're asking the computer to smush a lot of pixels into one place, and it often looks fuzzy or not quite right. So what we suggest is that people crop these items down before they put them onto the slide. So again, to do that, you want to select the image, and then over here in the preview area, click Edit, and that'll take you to that in-house editing area. So from here, we'll go to Resize. And I would think for this one, because it's portrait, what I want it to do is fit the height of that particular slide. So as a reminder, the Bracken slides themselves are 950 pixels wide by 600 pixels tall. So for this one, I want to set the height at 600 pixels. And when I tab off of that, it resizes. And now it's going to be the right height to fit within my particular slide. So once you've done that, you can click upload, and what you'll get is a second version that's set to the right height requirement. So we'll grab that one, and we're going to pop it over here, and then you'll see that all that I've done on this is just add a little bit of a line to provide a little bit of interest, and all that is just a normal old shape that I've kind of set on top of the image and opened up to fit the height of that particular slide, and then change the colors around on. So all that I did there was remove the border and change the fill color to match that kind of bluey gray that we normally use. And that's all that I did. So the other thing you want to note here is that that nice badge that I created earlier is now hidden by this photo. So we just need to change the layout. So select the photo and go to Layer and then click Send to Back. And that lovely little badge will pop up to the front. So that's our title slide recreated. So next on the list, we have this informative slide. So this is a slightly different layout to what a lot of people use, because all that I've done is put a title for that slide up the top. So there's no actual header. That's replacing the concept of the header. And then you've got body text here that you can pick and choose from. And I'll show you how I've laid these images out as well so that they look nice and tidy. One thing that I will point out that a lot of people ask questions on is how many times do I need to use the layout that I've created? If you've made template slides, how many times do I have a slide that has an image to the right? Or how many times do I have a slide that has an image as a background? What's the right ratio to use? that's always a really difficult question to answer because it goes back to the kind of content that you're using. So your goal should be to highlight whatever your key learning objectives are in whatever way works best, and in whatever way that kind of gets the attention of the user. One thing that I've referenced in other training sessions before as something that you can use for some inspiration is a magazine. That's a great option to look at. There's another site that I go to quite often called Awards with 3 W's. So Awards is a kind of a user-run voting platform for website design. So you can look here for lots of really nice inspiration on layout as well. Some of these sites will be kind of complicated in regards to their kind of behavior, but you're not trying to emulate the behavior, you're looking at the layout. So for example, this pets playlist, how they've got little images stuck around the screen. That's what you're looking at. How are people today laying things out, and what seems to resonate with the audience that you're trying to approach? The other thing that I recommend as well, if you know of any really big companies that feel similar to your particular brand, a lot of times you can actually go to their websites and see if they've put forward a quarterly report of some sort, or a report of anything to do with their actual company. Specifically, bigger companies that have really nice marketing departments put a lot of effort into how they lay those reports out. And those reports often have a lot of content in them. So if you can look at quarterly reports or anything along those lines for companies that feel similar to your brand, that's another really great place to go to get an idea for how you can lay stuff out that combines an image and text in a way that looks quite nice on a page. So that's another place to go for some inspiration if you get stuck. So just to reiterate that, go to your magazine stands and have a look. Have a look around the award site, or go and find a quarterly report from a larger company that might fit with your branding. The key point there is that little bit at the end, that it needs to feel like your branding should feel. If you're working for a health and safety company, for example, you're not going to go and find the latest issue of Cosmopolitan and use that as a way to kind of construct your look and feel of your content, because they're two completely different target audiences. So keep that in mind if you get a bit stuck. It's all right. Right, so to make this layout, all that I've done is made a master slide. So we'll go to page and blank. And you've got a nice line up here with some white space between your text. This is actually really, really simple to do. It looks like it would be 3 pieces. It's actually only 2. So all that I've done there is gone to add, clicked shape, found a line, put that roughly where I want that to go, and stretched it the length of the slide. I will go and make sure that that's the right color. With the lines, all you're doing is setting the border color. So I'll pick that bluey gray that I like. And then from here, I want to sort out the text aspect of this. So predecessors is what I've used as a title for the other one. So we'll put that in there, we'll center it, and then make that cell, the cell itself, just a little bit smaller, and apply a fill color of white to the cell. And what that does is create the illusion of space between that cell and the line that you've put it on top of. And that means that it makes your life much, much easier when you're going through and redesigning this concept and reusing that text cell. So when I make the master page, all that I'm actually doing, let me duplicate this really quickly. All that I'm really doing for the master page is making one slide that has a line on it, like such. So we'll go to master page and click make master, and you'll see that pops over there. And then for the actual slide itself, you want to apply that master page, and then you just have this nice text cell that sits right on top of that line and does as it is supposed to do. Here we go. So that's something that you can then duplicate that particular slide and just change the text on really easily. And it means that you've got something that looks quite nice, It's something that's really easy to edit. You don't have to make 3 million different lines and resize them all independently from one another. If you happen to have wording that's longer, you just make this longer and recenter it. So it's not the end of the world. So for this one, I believe on the example, that was in bold as well. So we'll make that bold. And then we'll grab this text that we've written up, copy that, and we'll put it in a text cell over here. Now, what you'll see is because I've pasted it with that shift associated before the V, it's actually removed the bullet points. And that's kind of the effect that you want, because you want it to import it as the default text. So I'll just go through and add those bullet points back in. Open that up. Now, this next bit, what I've got is a concept in my head where I wanted to illustrate some different materials that were used as toilet paper before toilet paper existed. So I did a little bit of research, got a short list, and said, okay, what are some interesting ones out of that list that I can use to illustrate that point? Moss, I felt was quite interesting, as were rocks. But the one that I thought was weirdest was perfumed lace, which I don't see how that's actually effective, but you know, we'll run with it. So what I've done here is the same as I have with the title. I've gone to Unsplash and I found some example photos that I liked for each of those things. The key here is figuring out what size I wanted them to be when I put them on the slide. So one of the ways that I kind of cheat and test out a concept is I'll actually go and make a blank cell with nothing in it. And I will adjust that to kind of the height that I think I want that particular image to be. And then I may go here and copy it and paste it twice so that I have what all three would look like. And what this allows me to do is really quickly see if the size that I've created is too big, too small, and not quite right. So what I'll do is resize them until I think that they're about where I want them to be size-wise. And then I'll go and select all three, and I'll go to layout, and I do the same thing again, and I'll distribute vertically. And what I'm looking for is overlap here, because I actually want them to be roughly the same size. So this is a wee bit finicky, but it does work, I promise. So let's say that's the end size that we want. I'll go to distribute vertically, and I've got some space in between them. So if I don't want that spacing in between them, I can go collapse vertical gaps, and what I end up with is all three, all the same size, nicely stacked upon one another in a way that I can grab them all together and move them around and really get a feel for how that layout is going to look on this particular slide. So for here, I might want them to be much wider than what I've initially thought, so I can spread them out, but knowing that they're all still the same size. So this is a really, really quick and efficient way to do what we call wireframing in the design world. And it's more or less just a way to give you kind of an idea of how much space you're taking up with an item. So once you've kind of got an idea of what it is that you need to fill, you go back to that particular cell and you'll use this to give you the guidelines for the size of the image you want to create. So these are 450 pixels wide by 150 pixels tall. So write it down, keep it in the back of your head. Once you've grabbed the three images that you want from wherever you're getting them from, you'll then go and create these little slices. So for the pebbles, this is quite big. So I would open that up, resize it so that it is exactly that size. So all that I did there was resize the width so that it was 450. The height is still too tall. I think it was supposed to be 150. I didn't write it down, that's what I get. So all I want to do there is crop it after I've resized the width to 150. And now I have a nice little slice that's going to fit where I want it to fit. So just do that over and over again and repeat until you have the three that you want. So we'll grab the images like such and pop them in place. These are going to be a little bit bigger because I've used a slightly different ratio on my example than I did for the actual thing. Like so. And then same again with the references from Unsplash. You'll just go through and create all of those and then set them on top. So that's all that I've done there. That's a really, again, quick way to go through and kind of get a nice layout going with some different images that's going to support the content you've created over here. And that's the key. with any of the imagery you're using, it needs to support, not distract from the actual text. Right, so that is slide 2. Now, slide 3 is a great run through of a really, really simple way to illustrate either a process or a timeline or a change from, you know, A to B to C. So all that I've done here is very, very simple. This is just 6 slides, 3 of them with some slightly different formatting, and then another one of those reference links that I showed you last time. So we'll just whip through and build this really quickly. So we'll grab the text for the title. We'll come back here and we'll just duplicate this page because that doesn't bother me at all. Once I've duplicated it, I'll go through and delete all the things that are in the middle. And then I'll add in the text that I've copied from the other page. And you can see that that still gives me enough white space on the sides, so I'm not going to bother resizing that at the moment. Next will be the years, so 1857. And all that I've done here is use that title theme again. And then the first fact is the original inventor of the concept of toilet paper. So we'll grab that information, paste it in. Now for this one, all of this information I pulled off of a website from How Stuff Works. So if you're unfamiliar with How Stuff Works, it is just a really nice little site. It's been around for ages that will give you information on how something's made, how it works, really. That's what it's for. They also have produced a really nice podcast of roughly the same name. And I'll show you how to embed a podcast into the end of a module as well. So that's this reference for this one. So what I want to do is grab the URL for that particular site. And again, as I mentioned last time, it depends on how you want to actually create your references back to material if you need to. Most of the time it's suggested because you want to, you know, pay homage to the creator of whatever it is that you're using. There are lots of different types of referencing styles that you can use. I tend to go for a really kind of bog standard one. But what I'll do, and again, you can do this however you want. My preferred method, because it's easier, is just to create a number at the end of whatever that particular thing that I'm referencing is, apply subscript to it, and then at the bottom of the page or at the end of the module, you'll use that number again, add in the author's last name, and then the author's first name, and then usually I'll put in the title of the work. And then if it's associated with the website, you put the URL in. And I've probably got the punctuation all wrong, but there's, if you work in an academic area, there's a lot of constraints around how you actually write these. But the key is ultimately that you're at least giving credit to whoever it was that provided that information or made it or wrote it in the first place. So once I have the URL, I'll often go and create a hyperlink back to that original item as well. And then I have a functioning link that can sit at the bottom of this slide as a reference to whoever it was that I got that from. So to create the same effect on the other one as the example, we've just centered that and we've made the text a little bit smaller, usually around 12 pixels. And then I also will put in a light gray kind of strip down the bottom, just so that it doesn't feel like it's orphaned down the bottom of the page. So we'll grab another rectangle, pop that down there, widen it out. And then I usually go through and remove the border and change the fill color to something really, really light. And then layout wise, send it to the back. So from there, we have a nice reference. Now, on the original, one of the things I like to avoid are sentences that have these weird little hangovers of a couple of words. Sometimes they're called orphans. So I will often play around with the width of whatever cell I've got to make that look a little bit cleaner. The other thing that I do is try and highlight the important parts of a longer statement by judicious use of the bold. So I may want to point out that this guy's name was Joseph Gayety, and that he called the original version of toilet paper his Gayety's medicated paper. So we'll do our bolding, And now we have something that looks quite clean. The key here is this content should already exist somewhere on a Word document. So you should already know of these three things, which one is the longest. Anytime you're designing something with a repeated feel, you want to design it against whatever is going to be the biggest thing that you need to fit in there, because that means that anything you use after the fact is going to fit fine. So that's the longest statement that I needed to fit, so that's the one that I started with. Once I've done that, I'll just grab both of those elements and I'll go to add, copy, and paste. And what you get is a replicated version of that long statement with the original year. So we'll just kind of tidy them up a wee bit. And then from here, all that I've done is gone through and changed the text to suit whatever was the accurate information. So that is that one. Now, next we have the splinter-free toilet paper. So this is an example of an embedded YouTube video. So I did a little bit of digging around to try and find something interesting, came across this commercial. So all I'll do here is grab the URL from the actual YouTube site, and then I come back to my module, make a blank. Sorry, I don't want a blank. I want to duplicate that. I will grab everything here because I don't need it. And then I will go to Add, Media, YouTube, and I'll paste that video reference there. Most of you will be pretty familiar with this, but for those of you who aren't, that's how it works. So this again, what I've found, and this was from the same article, was just a nod to the fact that splinter-free toilet paper was actually a thing that they advertised in the 30s because it didn't exist before that, which sounds quite terrifying now, doesn't it? So if we open that up, you'll see that the text that I have actually is going to overlap that video. So I just want to make the video a smidge smaller, kind of recenter it roughly. And then what I want to do is actually recreate that reference. Because I went through and deleted it, conveniently, it's for the exact same bit of information as is on this slide. So I'll just go and grab both of those and paste them. Majestically appears as it is supposed to. And then that slide is done. So when you look at this as a user, you can use the preview tab up here to actually see that that YouTube video embeds quite nicely. You can also click back and look through some of the other stuff you've done to make sure everything feels right. So jumping back to edits, we will then go forth and create the next slide, which is this lovely little interaction. I don't know about you guys, I prefer over. I think under is very weird. This is apparently a topic of great contention amongst many people. So what we'll do here is we'll create, again, a duplicate of that particular slide. I want to go through and change the title. So grab that bit of text, put it in there. And then what I've done here is I've created a multi-choice question that's a radio button interaction, but I've had it display in a horizontal fashion rather than vertically. So these default to vertical layout, and I just swapped it to horizontal. And I've also pulled the question out and put it in a different cell so that I can control the formatting on it a little bit better. So if I grab the text for this question, I don't need this, and I don't need that. We'll make a new cell by double clicking, paste that question in place, and all that I've done is center it. Make that a wee bit wider because we're going to make this a little bit bigger. And then change the format to the note, but change the color to that gray. And then I've just added in the interaction itself. So to add in the interaction, you'll go to Add, Interaction, Radio button, and then double click on this default version that gets set up to get to the editing window. So we'll paste the question again there. And now we want to go and find pictures to depict correct and/or correct. So this is a great example of an interaction where there is no correct answer. You're just asking for opinions. So the way that you want to set that up is you make them both correct, and the out of, which indicates the number of points that question is worth, is actually 0 because it's not worth anything. You just want to know what they think. So there are no points associated with this particularly. Now from here, I'll go and grab the images. So I found 2 images on Wikipedia that fit what I needed. They're exactly the same size, which is perfect. That keeps everything looking really clean. The other thing that I've done is gone through and resized them the same way that we have with the other ones, down to 300 by 275. This is another thing that you can do, again, with just an empty text cell to go and determine what width you want. I took a stab in the dark, was quite happy with that, so we've gone with that. So once you've resized them, you'll click on the photo image for each answer, that little photo icon, and then you pick the image that you want to associate with that answer. Once you have those in place, you have everything ticked as correct, you've got everything set to 0. The way that you get these to display horizontally rather than vertically is by going to Display Style and clicking Stacked. Now what will happen is this cell is set at too small a width to allow those images to sit horizontally. So I actually need to reposition this and open it up so that they can both sit next to one another. The other thing that I need to do is turn off that kind of question text there. Now the reason why we have to do it like this, if I left that text there, you actually don't have any control of the formatting of it when it sits, when it's associated directly with the question. You should always put something in this label area because this gets referenced on the summary pages for the modules. But we do have a lot of people who want to have different types of formatting for the question compared to the answers. So what we suggest is that you add the question in the label and you set it to hide. And then you also have the question as its own cell. That means you can control this cell independently of the question itself, but you've not lost that text for the summary page. So that is how you set that slide up, pretty much. Now, next thing is my fancy little embedded beauty. So for this one, what I've done is I've found a nice image that I liked on Unsplash for my background. And you'll see that I haven't used that title slide again. So I'm just going to make a blank new cell, new slide. And I'll go and grab my background first. So we'll go to Add and the Media and Image as per usual. So the image that I found that I liked was this one on light blue. I thought it looked quite good and I wanted it cropped in a certain fashion. The other thing that I did was I applied a black and white filter onto it. So the way that you do that, resize it. So you'll see this one is already 950 by 600. So you resize it to whatever you want. And then to make it black and white, you go to Hue, Saturation. And you want to take your saturation and put that at -100. That pulls all of the saturation or the strength of the color out of it. You can play around with these too. I highly recommend fiddling around with what these different settings do. You never know what effect you're going to find that you really like. It's all about experimentation, really. I wanted black and white though, so I've gone ahead and done that. And then again, you hit upload and you get this nice black and white image that you can have sitting in the background, like such. So again, for these, what I'll do is make a master page out of that, so that I can have it in the background but not be worried about clicking on it and accidentally moving it around. Only other things that I've done here is put a little bit of instructional information on where you can go to find out more information. So because I'm writing just a little bit of an introductory thing, I don't want to drone on and on and on about all of this information that you can find in the podcast, because you could very well make a whole module on the podcast itself, but I didn't actually need that. I just needed it to just provide the information that I thought was important for just an introductory session. And I like to give people the ability to go and find out more information if they want to. So whenever I make modules, if I'm finding that I found a site that's actually really cool and it's got a lot of interesting stuff to it, I'll include it as like an aside. A place that people can go if they want more information on something, because you never know, you may have users who just want to get through it, but you may have people who want to take their time and really learn more about it. So give them the opportunity. If you found something that's a good resource, include it in there somewhere. So this bit here, this is an embedded piece of code. So this is a trick that I use for anything that's not on YouTube or Vimeo. Every once in a while you'll come across something online that will have some sort of an option to embed this on your own site. Sometimes it's a calculator that someone's created, or it's a song, or in this case, a podcast. The way that you do this, and I'll show you on my desktop version of Spotify. So the way that you do this is the actual podcast itself. So this is Stuff You Should Know. Highly recommend this if you are bored in isolation and you want to listen to some cool stuff. They've got loads and loads and loads of podcasts on everything. And you never know what you're going to come across that may fit in with what you're trying to teach people about. When I was working with Polytech, working in vet nursing, they have a really good podcast on zoonotic diseases, which are diseases you can catch from animals. So that was something that was really well done that we included with our course material. It's not somewhere I would have gone to look for it, but it is something that we came across that worked really well. So again, you never know where you're going to find stuff. So to embed this, I'll go and find the podcast that I want. And on Spotify, they usually have this little more option. And you're looking for something that's usually called share. When you go to share, again, this is not for everything. This only happens every once in a while. When you go to share, you may find something that says copy embed code or embed on your website or something like that. When you click that, for Spotify, it will say, this has been copied to your clipboard. So I know that code's been generated, put in my clipboard, and now I can use it. The way that you do this is you create a new cell, you go to view and source code, the same way we've done for a couple of other things. You paste that directly into source code and then click save. Don't click off of this cell, click save. And what you get is this beautiful little embedded badge that Spotify has created themselves that you can then reposition wherever you see fit on the page. If it's a bigger company that does this quite often, or they're really big on social media, you'll often find that they will have these designed very, very cleverly so that they change shape or layout when you kind of resize them. So play around with that a little bit. The resizing and the moving can be a little bit finicky, so just be a little bit patient with it. But the end result, if I save that and preview it, is a podcast that you can play directly from a module. So your user doesn't have to go anywhere. They can play that directly from where they are. Very, very handy. So if you have anything on Spotify, it works for that. It can be music, it could be a podcast, it could be yoga soundtrack of crickets. Like, it could be anything that you want. So use that to your advantage. Find other ways to engage people in what you're trying to teach them with sound. That's always a really good option. That whole concept of blended learning applies to the different senses as well, not just the different methods that you're using. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I've done that one. And I believe that was the end of that module. So the only other thing that I'll point out here is that the other thing I've done is for each of these titles, I've gone through and under cell style. If you select whatever you want to be the title for that slide, go to cell style and hit cell as slide title. In the authoring environment, a little paperclip will appear. But the important thing is down here in the slide reel, you'll get a title for that cell. So you can see the ones that I haven't done yet. So do that as you're going along. That will appear for the slide reel so users can find their way around the content. It also shows up on the summary page as the title for that particular section of information. So that's another really nice one to include when you're authoring, is indicating what the actual title is going to be. Sometimes people have content here that they don't want to reference as the title. And the way that I tend to get around that is by creating a separate cell, putting in the title that I want to use, applying my fancy little paperclip, and then just shoving that up in the upper left-hand corner and hiding it. So it's not a fail-safe, but it is a cheaty way to get around that particular restriction if you find that it is a restriction. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of my podcast embedding module on toilet paper. Does anyone have any questions about any of that?
I have a quick question for you, Lauren. You know, the text and the, I forget what they're called. Could you just bring up your screen again? Text and the formats for text.
These ones?
Yeah, the themes, that's the word, I couldn't think of it. Do you still have to make them, or can we make those ourselves?
No, we still have to make those. So if you've got
That's cool.
something, yeah, if you've got something you need here, or if you've changed your branding and it needs to be updated, just shoot us a message and let us know. Generally, we need to know what the font is, what size, is it bold or not, and then what color.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Yep. Cool.
That was really good. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to help. Well, if no one else has any other questions, I think we can call that the end of session 2 of lockdown.
Lovely.
Go listen to that podcast too. They're great. They're very American, but they're great.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
No worries. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Until next time.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks, Lauren.
Have a good one.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Lauren.
Did that help get them?